Straight 4 Studios flew us to Zurich to try their new highly anticipated title, Project Motor Racing. This is Ian Bell's first game since Project Cars 3 and whatever that Fast and Furious game was. Giant Software has also provided an affiliate link to use if you want to pre-order, but you know what Total Biscuit used to say about pre-orders. But if you do pre-order, the link is there if you want to help the channel out, just like all the members of the channel. With the important things out of the way, the preview event was at Racing Unleashed, a sim racing lounge just next to Zurich's airport, where we could try the available content in the variety of rigs. The provided build was a working build from March that they froze development for this event. There were a few people from the community with different outlooks to try, so we had journalists like Traction and Overtake, a few content creators, because I can't use the word influencer without bursting a vein somewhat, people like Gamer Muscle and myself, and even esports guys like Mabex. For Straight 4, this is a healthy mix of people that could possibly cover a multitude of preference and give some feedback based on that outlook. For Project Motor Racing, we have to remember that Straight 4 had to go to the drawing board in many things. We're talking about a new engine and a new evolved physics set.
Hi, my name is Ben Ponsford. I'm the lead vehicle programmer at Straight 4 Studios. On the tire model, we are using the learnings from the setter model that was used in the past, and what we've got now is an evolved setter. So it's everything that was there and more, essentially. So it's just continuous iteration. It felt still like the best approach to go with. So the guy that wrote it is saying, I can do more, and we're doing more. So putting in more details, and I really hope that what you've been driving today and everybody else, the feedback's been really positive. So, and obviously the 90% of the handling-ish is all down to the tire model. I'm picking a figure out of the air there, but it's that sort of ballpark. So the approach with the setter model is the same sort of, I think, three component system that was being used before. So you've got the contact patch simulation, you've got the tread around the tire, and then you've got the carcass, which is connecting like the tread to the wheel rim. So and that's all there in models. I know we played around with different step rates, because obviously I know we've called out that we're using 720 hertz. That was for a couple of reasons. As an example, was that we wanted something that was a common multiple of like 120 and 90, so something that would divide up nicely with both like high refresh rate monitors and with VR. Yeah. So it works nicely for that. It's higher than what we've used before, and it's high enough that we get. Basically, it's a good compromise between getting smoothness in the model, where we're minimizing jitter, and we're getting good results out of it. But you do get a point of diminishing returns, and obviously, every time you double that, your CPU cost for the tires is doubling. So we feel like it's like the sweet spot in terms of getting nice behavior. Obviously, the Madness engine is we're not able to use that anymore. That's gone dead. So we had to start from scratch. We did the first year using Unreal 5, and as much as it is a wonderful engine, it is not perfectly suited to the needs of a fast-paced racing game. So we had some challenges with it, and it's a huge bit of software, and it was quite difficult to change it in the ways we felt we needed to change it. So we had some questions like, is Unreal the best solution? And when obviously we started partnering up with Giants, and Giants had their engine, we realized that in some ways it's a step back. It's not, we can't claim to be as polished as the amount of work that's gone into UV5. It's an enormous project, but the ways that it was weak was like, we have the skills in-house to make that better. So it's like, okay, maybe the visual fidelity wasn't quite where we would want it. It's like, well, we can work on that, and various other bits and pieces internally. It's like, okay, we can improve that, we can improve that, we can make it what we want. But there's loads of stuff in it that is exactly what I want, like the way it's. They've shipped that engine on PC and on the consoles. They've done mobile. It's very adaptable. It's lighter. It's more malleable in that sense. They've got a good experience with modding. All lots of things that appeal to us. And so actually, it gives us some things that Unreal doesn't, and we can work on the areas where it maybe wasn't quite as good as Unreal. And overall, so it's like one step back but two steps forwards, and we'll have a much better product in the end. So we think it was 6 months we basically had to do to get back to where we were in the Unreal version. But it's better in the long run. We think it's been the right call.
My name is Kai Mensing, and I work at Audi in the licensing department, and I make sure that our cars ideally get into video games and miniature cars, toys, all those things. Physics at the end of the day always comes down to numbers, and so we have technical data sheets. For race cars, normally While they're still in competition, the data is quite confidential naturally. So we always have to find a way in between to see how much can we hand out before handing out secrecies. If it's cars which are not in the race business any longer, historic car models, then naturally it's a bit easier. But we give as much data as we can to the developers of the game, and then the developers of the game input it into the physics engine and then start testing it. And usually the best is to test it with race drivers that drove those cars at a specific time, because they are the ones that are able to really do the fine-tuning of the car. For older cars where you don't have CAD data, it's naturally more complex to build the car as realistic as possible. I mean, luckily, technology has advanced quite a lot in the recent years, so we normally do a laser scanning of the car to get 3D data, and then the first build gets sent over, and then I really stand next to the real car, have my laptop with all the images, and then look at all the detail and see if there is anything going wrong. I mean, for this specific car and this specific game, we only had, I believe, 2 or 3 times going back and forth, so it was already, to begin with, very good quality.
Now, what does this mean in experiencing the game? Having in mind that we are talking about an alpha build, the state of it was actually pretty okay, though I do have some reservations. The content available for cars was a Lola T70, if I'm not mistaken. Lola was at the event with Johnny Herbert, by the way, the Audi R8 LMP car, and the Lamborghini Evo 2 GT3. The tracks were Mosport and Lime Rock. Graphically, it somewhat reminds me a bit of Project Cars 2. The details of the track are really good, everything is laser scanned, well detailed, that includes the car as well. The color saturation was cranked up a lot though. It had that Project Cars 2 look that you know, and some of you love, some of you might not. If you look at it for a while, you just think it's Project Cars 2. The performance of this build was hit or miss. They had a triple screen setup that oftentimes had stutters, but that was even the case in the single monitor setup. As the game ran more and more time, the stutters appeared more frequently. Even though FPS wise it seems to run okay, but we had no FPS counter to check. This means optimization is something that needs to happen. As for the driving, I know this is going probably to be the most important thing. It was a bit of a mixed bag at this stage, but generally positive. Nothing wrong with the driving, but a few improvements probably need to happen in some cases. It does remind me of a more polished and frankly evolved version of Project Cars 2. And zooming out, AMS2 feels like an adapted Project Cars 2. This one feels like a progression of Project Cars 2. There's still a little bit of floatiness on the force feedback, that happens in Project Cars 2, but it feels much more involved than that. In terms of force feedback, the Logitech Pro actually felt much better for me than the Xiaomi Cube setups, and I believe they were running True Force, so that might be helping that somewhat. The vintage cars felt fun and engaging, difficult to run, but also so rewarding. The Lola had this under into oversteer feel where it was needed to four-wheel drift into a corner to go as fast as possible, as they used to. The Audi had a bit of throttle control, but in the other way around, it was to control the beast and not slip into the corners with so much power on tap and the inability to clear the corner in the same way the Lola did. The driving felt more modern with a good deal of aero. The GT3, in this case the Lamborghini, will face far more scrutiny when the game comes out, as it's the more popular class available in other sims as well, and of course there's a bunch of GT3 drivers that drive these cars right now. So therefore it will be natural to more comparisons will be raised once this game comes out. I found out that these cars were very sensitive to turn-in, like the steering sensitivity was set to high. In this case it felt sometimes difficult to figure out how to turn properly the car. In some ways, it was more akin to iRacing driving, while the tires didn't work particularly in the same way. So, me thinks that the GT3s will need to have a little bit of extra attention, because after all the comparisons will be natural and good GT3 driving will be a necessary condition of this game selling well. In essence, the game drove okay, it needs improvements, but if the physics sets released in this state, it would be around the average of whatever it is available right now, with good road feel, decent curb and suspension feel, okay tire progression, pretty decent force feedback with a good implementation of true force. Therefore, that leads me to another point, which will be the content. There will be around 70 cars in 7 or so classes plus whatever the DLC comes in. These classes will be complete-ish. Should be also a cup car of sorts, which I hope, for the love of God, is the Project Cars 2 Renault Clio Cup, because that thing kicked ass. MX-5 Cup would be also nice as well, but I'm not sure if it's gonna happen. Neither do with the Clio. Straight 4 wants Project Motor Racing to have more complete classes so the game doesn't feel bare with sparsely populated class choices like it happened in their previous titles, and we need to forget about Project Cars 3. I'm expecting some sort of competitive multiplayer, but the type of it, not so sure. Straight 4 will define more information as it comes closer to the date. In essence, I think what we have here is the actual sequel to Project Cars 2, The Evolution. I'm liking where the physics are going because it feels better than Project Cars 2 already, and I hope this will also have the same drama and panache the previous titles had, and I'm hopeful for that because the soundtrack will be made once again by Steven Baysted. Project Motor Racing should release later this year, hopefully before Grand Theft Auto 6. So, what do you think of it? Let us know in the comments.